Hey, Soul Stories fam. We're starting a new love journey. Tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and join our family. Now stay with us. The story begins. That night in Boston was sharp as needles. The Charles River wind slipped through the window cracks, carrying the scent of damp wood and bitter orange into the herbal twist bar. Scarlett was on the night shift. Black shirt, gray apron, hair tied up. She gripped the tray tightly to keep her hands from trembling. Whether from the cold or from working her third consecutive night shift this week, she couldn't tell. Hot toddy, less sweet, like always. A deep, warm male voice. The man with glasses, a honey-colored poo sweater, and a baseball cap pulled low. He always smiled and called her by a name that made her co-workers giggle. Beauty. Scarlett peeled a strip of lemon zest, poured whiskey, added just a touch of honey, and stirred in cinnamon. Steam rose. Lemon and honey fused into a mellow warmth that coated the tongue. She set the glass in front of him. Still choosing poo in the middle of winter? He shrugged, the smile behind his glasses gentle. Because it makes you smile. Thanks, Beauty. She still didn't know his name. Only that he was polite, quiet, paid in cash, and always left a perfect tip. She turned away. Just as the glass door swung open, a cold wind rushed in, along with a perfume so familiar that her stomach tightened. Luca. Behind him was Courtney, her foster sister, in a white dress, soft smile, sharp eyes. They headed toward the VIP section. Manager Miller bowed low, eager to please. Scarlett froze for half a second, instinct searching for escape. The end of the counter, behind the liquor shelf, or the storage room. Her heartbeat thundered. Her fingers brushed the icy edge of the bar. You okay? The poo sweater man's voice sounded beside her, not loud but clear. Scarlett shook her head slightly. I need to stay out of their sight. She bent down, about to slip through the narrow shadow between the counter and the wall. Then Courtney's laughter grazed the back of her neck. Miller turned toward the bar, about to call Scarlett's name. She ducked. And at that moment, the man in the poo sweater stepped forward, completely blocking the view. He leaned in, lowered his cap, one arm gently circling her back as if in an embrace. She lifted her head, placing both hands on his chest. That vague, intimate posture turned them into a couple sharing a private moment amid the noise, her face fully hidden from Luca and Courtney's line of sight. Miller glanced over, then looked away, busy greeting the VIP guests. Ice clinked in the shaker. The jazz softened. Within that pretend embrace, Scarlett's breathing slowed. The clean scent of wool, honeyed lemon, and cinnamon wrapped around her, warm all the way to her wrists. Thank you, she whispered. No problem, he replied, lowering his arm so she wouldn't feel awkward. Sometimes the best way to disappear is to make people think you're happy. Scarlett let out a faint laugh. Do you always play the hero here, Mr. Pooh? Only when Beauty needs one. He took a sip of his hot toddy, his eyes never leaving hers. My name's Caleb. She froze. Scarlett. I know, Caleb said softly, like a promise to keep a secret rather than a boast. In the VIP section, Luca leaned closer to Courtney, whispering something. They no longer looked toward the bar. The storm had passed without touching her. Scarlett withdrew her hands and straightened. I owe you a thank you. You can repay me with a smile. She smiled, not just because of the act, but because for a fleeting moment she felt safe. Their eyes lingered longer than they should have. Safe and something unnamed that neither had time to define. Outside, the wind was still cold. Inside, the hot toddy still steamed, and the man in the poo sweater stood like an invisible shield between her and the past. The next day, Boston was still bitterly cold. At 7 p.m., Herbal Twist glowed golden like a music box. Scarlett was polishing glasses, repeating to herself, stay calm. Do it like every other day. The glass door jingled softly. A honey-colored Pooh Bear sweater walked in. The man removed his gloves and nodded as if greeting a familiar ritual. Hot toddy, less sweet, he said, his voice low and familiar. Scarlett sliced a thin piece of lemon, steeped cinnamon, poured whiskey, and added just a touch of honey. The steam rose, carrying the scent of citrus and wood through the cafe. She brought the drink to the corner table where he always sat. Still going with a toddy in this weather? She asked. Because it calms you. It calms me, he replied. Scarlett let out a quiet laugh. That's a strange kind of logic. He didn't answer right away. After a few beats, he looked at her and spoke slowly, as if placing a stone into water. Some people don't come to love us. They come to remind us we once had a heart. Scarlett froze. The sentence struck right at the soft spot she kept hidden. She pretended to adjust the coaster to hide her fluster. Who are you talking about? About the meetings that happen at the right time, he said calmly. You were in trouble last night, and he touched the rim of the warm glass. I remembered I still know how to stand on someone's side. Scarlett blushed. The pretend embrace from last night still lingered warmly in her memory. She glanced at the toddy, then stepped back half a pace. Thanks for the performance. A performance only matters if the audience sees it, Caleb said, taking a sip. Last night, they saw something else. You didn't tremble. You just chose not to collide. Avoiding conflict is also survival, she replied. It's also a way of choosing your battles. He tilted his head. So when do you choose to fight? Scarlett pressed her lips together. When the law's on my side, she smiled at herself. If there's still a law that stands on my side. Caleb stayed quiet, acknowledging her words. He didn't pry, just looked at her closely, as if respecting the shell she needed. Then he changed the subject slightly. You cut down the honey today. It fits better. You notice everything, Scarlett said, surprised. Not as much as you hiding exhaustion, he said softly. Your eyes look a little tired. Night shift, and it's cold. Cold keeps people alert, he nodded. As Scarlett turned to leave, Caleb placed a card on the table. Black, with embossed edges. If anyone comes in tonight that you don't want to see, call me. You're a customer. Customers aren't part of the security protocol. Right Secure is, he said, half joking. Scarlett didn't notice the embossed logo. To her, Wright was just a common surname. She didn't ask what he did either. She had learned to respect other people's secrets, especially when she needed one of her own. That night, the cafe was packed. Scarlett moved nonstop. Every time she looked up, Caleb was still at his usual corner. Not rushing, not on his phone, just sipping his toddy, meeting her eyes from time to time as if to say, I'm still here. Don't be afraid. Near 10 o'clock, Caleb stood, pulled his hat low, and gave her a small nod. See you tomorrow, beauty. You drink toddy like it's a promise, she teased. Some promises are meant to be repeated, not explained, he said, pushing the door open. The door closed, and the wind chime rang softly. Scarlett stood behind the counter, hands still busy, but her heartbeat had slowed. Last night, he had been her shield tonight. He felt more like an anchor set quietly in the corner of the room. In the days that followed, Caleb stopped by almost every evening. Same poo sweater, same hot toddy. Less sweet. He never asked personal questions, only noticed the smallest details. A new scratch on her hand from lifting the icebox lid. A slower twist of her wrist from strain. A smile that came a beat later after rush hour. Scarlett never asked who he really was. The silence between them was safe enough that no background check was needed. She still didn't know the man was Caleb Wright, chairman of the largest hotel group in Boston. And Caleb, he had started to notice her gaze, brave yet quiet. He didn't come for the drink anymore, but for the woman who made it, for the way she stood straight in a crooked world, and for the look in her eyes that said, I've lost everything once, but I haven't sold what's left. Rain poured over Boston in torrents. The clock inside Herbal Twist ticked past 10. Manager Miller beckoned Scarlett over, his voice tight and hurried. VIP Table 3, Mr. Sanders, owner of the building materials chain. Serve scotch, 15-year, neat. Remember? Please the client. Got it? Scarlett nodded. I serve drinks, not people. Miller gave a thin smile. In the VIP room, you serve both. The VIP lounge was as cold as a boardroom. White lights, glass walls, dark wood table. Sanders, tie loosened and face flushed from alcohol, drummed his fingers against the surface. New girl? Name? Scarlett. She placed the scotch, poured precisely 2 fingers and set down the coaster. If you need anything else, I'll be right outside. Wait. He patted the seat beside him, grinning lewdly. Come closer. Let me make sure you get it right. Scarlett stood still. Sorry, policy doesn't allow staff to sit with guests. Hey, Sanders said, glancing at the 2 men beside him before grabbing her wrist sharply. Come here. The sudden pull made the glass tilt, spilling golden scotch all over his shirt cuff. You little... He shot to his feet, gripping her arm, breath hot with alcohol. You come here. His hand slid to her waist, trying to pull her onto his lap. Scarlett broke free instantly, twisting her wrist and locking his elbow, escaping the grip. Her heart pounded like a drum. Don't touch me. She yanked the door open and called out, Manager! Miller rushed in, his smile flickering. What's going on? Sanders slammed his hand on the table. She spilled my drink, insulted me, and refused to cooperate. But I'm generous. She apologizes publicly right now, and I'll let her in this place off the hook. Otherwise, I'm suing for breach of service and harassment of a VIP client. My lawyer, Luca James, is waiting for my call. Miller turned sharply to Scarlett, his tone low and menacing. Apologize now, sign the incident report, and this ends. If not, Sanders pulls the contract for next month's events and files a lawsuit. You can afford that? Scarlett met his eyes. I didn't do anything wrong. I served a drink. He grabbed my arm and tried to pull me onto his lap. I defended myself. There are no cameras in VIP, Miller hissed. It's your word against 3 clients. You apologize, the bar lives. You refuse, the bar dies with you. Choose. No. Scarlett's voice was steady. I won't apologize for being harassed. The air turned to lead. Sanders sneered. Fine. Call security. Detain her. We'll file the report tonight. Miller grabbed his radio. Security to VIP room 3. Then lower to Scarlett. Who do you think you are? Luca James will crush you in a day. Go back in. Apologize. I'll cover for you. The name Luca cracked across Scarlett's chest like a whip, but her face didn't change. If you want to cover for someone, cover your staff from being assaulted. The door creaked open. Security had arrived. Scarlett's eyes darted once to the exit sign at the end of the hallway. She shifted half a step, shoved the door wide, slipped past the guards and ran. Stop her! Miller shouted. Footsteps thundered behind her. The radio crackled. East door! Block her! The hallway stretched narrow and cold under fluorescent lights. Scarlett sprinted through the kitchen, dodged a tray of hot dishes, slammed the exit door open. Rain and wind hit her face like knives. The iron stairs were slick. She nearly slipped, but caught the railing. Heavy footsteps followed, and Sanders's voice shrieked through the storm. You brat! Scarlett burst onto the sidewalk. Rain lashed her like whips. Her black shirt clung to her skin. She turned down an alley thick with the smell of garbage and wet asphalt. Behind her, Miller yelled, Scarlett! Come back, apologize, and Mr. Sanders will forgive the bar. Scarlett turned her head once. I won't apologize for defending myself. She cut across the street. A car horn screamed. A black sedan braked hard, headlights flashing white across her face for a split second. The back door swung open. The man in the poo sweater stepped out into the rain. No umbrella, no hesitation. He walked straight toward her, draped his coat over her shoulders and said in a low, commanding voice, Get in the car! Now! Scarlett obeyed on instinct. The door slammed shut. Caleb turned to face the men rushing toward them. Miller stopped at the hood, panting, pointing. She's my employee! She needs to come back and apologize so Mr. Sanders will drop the charges. Caleb took off his glasses. Rain streaked down his temple. His voice was calm and even. Apologize for defending herself? Miller faltered, then barked. She spilled a drink, disrespected. For being harassed, Caleb cut in, his tone like steel. He pulled out his phone and pressed a few buttons. Right secure, east door, herbal twist. Bring legal. This is Caleb Wright. The name dropped like thunder. Security guards exchanged looks, hesitating. Miller's face drained of color. Sanders stumbled forward, pointing at the car. I'll sue! She has to apologize or I'll cancel every reservation and call the press. Caleb stepped closer, voice low but final. Then do it by the law. So will I. But don't you dare threaten to forgive this place by forcing an employee to apologize for being assaulted. No one's signing anything tonight. Inside the car, Scarlett heard every word. Her hands clutched the edge of his coat. Caleb Wright. A strange calm spread through her chest. Sirens from Wright Secure echoed in the distance. Miller backed away, swallowing hard. We can discuss this by phone, Mr. Wright. Caleb said nothing. He circled to the driver's seat and fastened his belt. You okay? He asked, watching her through the rearview mirror. Scarlett nodded, voice hoarse from the rain. Thank you for not making me apologize. Someone who defends herself has nothing to apologize for, Caleb said, shifting gears. The car glided forward, streetlights stretching into trembling gold lines on the windshield. You really are Caleb Wright? She asked, her voice barely above a thread. On a rainy night, I'm just a guy driving by, he said softly, and someone who knows a place where no one will ever make you apologize for doing what's right. Scarlett watched Boston blur past outside, misty, drenched. On her shoulders, his coat stayed warm. For the first time in months, safe wasn't just a word she told herself to survive. It had a shape now, a short command, an open door, and a man who refused to bargain with her dignity. Raindrops streaked across the windshield. The wipers kept a steady rhythm, the sound of rain tapping softly against the metal roof. Caleb kept his grip firm on the wheel, eyes forward. In the back seat, Scarlett clutched his coat tightly, trembling from cold and the adrenaline that hadn't yet faded. Just drive around a bit more, she whispered. I'm not ready to go home. We're not going back, Caleb said, voice low. I'm taking you to Third Diamond? Scarlett looked up. Your hotel? Yeah. He didn't elaborate. On the dashboard, an internal call flashed. Caleb hit the speaker. Wright Secure, handle the harassment protocol for partner hotels. Record the threat. Make her apologize or we'll spare the bar. Note the names Sanders and Miller. Legal will send a letter tomorrow morning. Copy that, Mr. Wright, came the curt reply. Scarlett took a deep breath and told him everything. Silence filled the car like a layer of cold water. Caleb's knuckles tightened on the steering wheel, veins visible. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he exhaled slowly, his control evident. I'm sorry you had to hear people barter like that. Scarlett gave a faint smile. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm apologizing on behalf of a culture that treats apologies as tickets to trample others, Caleb said evenly. But tonight, no one's forcing you to sign anything. She leaned back, half closing her eyes. The scent of clean wool, leather seats, and rain blended into the air. As the car turned down a tree-lined street, the triangular diamond logo of Third Diamond glowed gold through the rain. The underground gate opened. The car slid into a private lane. Security nodded, asking no questions. Caleb stopped by the VIP elevator, grabbed an extra umbrella from the trunk, and opened her door. Come with me. Rain splashed on their shoes, the concrete shimmering. Caleb held the umbrella over her, his other hand lightly steadying her elbow, a quiet reminder that he was there. The elevator rose smoothly, no music. In the stainless steel reflection, she saw a woman with wet hair, cheeks flushed from rain, and a man in a Pooh Bear sweater who didn't look anything like a billionaire, except for his eyes steady and unflinching. The door opened, a hallway of gray carpet and warm yellow light. Caleb swiped his key card. The room opened with the scent of wood and bergamot. A large window overlooked the Charles River, the city glowing below. Temporary room. You'll stay here tonight, he said, removing her wet coat and handing her a towel. Bathroom's here. I'll make you something warm. Scarlett stayed near the door like someone afraid of dirtying the place. I shouldn't be here. I can just call a cab. Sit down, Caleb said quietly. But it was the kind of quiet that couldn't be argued with. He moved into the kitchenette, turned on the kettle, opened a drawer, and took out fresh ginger, lemon, and honey. The knife made a soft scrape. The ginger slices came out paper thin. The water boiled. He poured it into a ceramic cup, added lemon, and stirred in just enough honey. Drink? He placed the cup in her hands and sat across from her instead of towering over her. Scarlett held the cup with both hands. The warmth spread through her fingers, into her palms, up her wrists. No one should ever have to apologize for defending themselves, Caleb said slowly. Not tonight. Not ever. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. No glasses, no hat, just calmness edged with steel. What about tomorrow? I still have to go back for my things. If they're waiting, I'll send someone. You won't go alone. His tone was factual, not forceful. And if necessary, I'll talk to Herbal Twist myself. In this city, no one spares a bar by making an employee sign a statement of guilt after being harassed. Not under the right name. Scarlett stared into her cup and gave a tired smile. You really hate the word spare, don't you? I hate negotiations that put dignity on the table, Caleb replied, especially when the weaker side is threatened with reputation. She took a sip. The ginger spread warmth through her chest. Her heartbeat slowed. The room was so quiet she could hear the rain drumming on the glass. In the corner stood a low bookshelf, a few empty white frames, and a neatly hung coat. She couldn't help but smile at the sight of that Pooh Bear sweater in such a sleek, luxurious space, like an off note that made the whole symphony less cold. Thank you, she said again, this time her voice steady. I'll leave when the rain eases. Caleb stood, walked to the window and looked out. The rain hadn't eased at all. He turned back, leaning against the desk, meeting her gaze as she set down the cup, ready to stand. If you go out tonight, he said slowly, he'll find you. Stay, just one night. Scarlett tightened her grip on the cup. The strong part of her wanted to say, I can handle myself. But another part, the one that had just heard apologize and will spare you, knew some nights weren't meant to test fate. Just one night, she repeated as if signing a small pact with herself. Caleb nodded. The door locks from the inside. Phone's by the bed. There's a robe in the closet. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to call me. I'm in the next room. You're not going anywhere. Work? He gave a faint smile. I'm working now. He lifted his phone, displaying live feeds from security, legal, and assistance. Some jobs are best done in silence. Scarlett nodded. She carried her cup into the bathroom. Warm water ran through her hair, washing away the scent of rain and fear. When she came out, she wore a robe, curled up on the single chair, and looked out the window. The city glowed gold, a map of streets she'd never walked. Caleb refilled the kettle, placed it on a tray, and dimmed the lights. The golden glow softened, leaving two small pools of light, one around her chair, another along the window ledge. The sound of rain was steady, like the breathing of a gentle giant outside. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow will be busy. Scarlett set the cup down and nodded. When she lay on the bed, softer than anything necessary, the scent of ginger and clean fabric wrapped around her. Outside, the rain didn't stop. Inside, her heartbeat slowed. She thought about the word sorry, how easily it's traded, how often it's forced upon women like her. Then she thought of his words. No one should ever have to apologize for defending themselves. In the rain under the amber light and the city's steady breath, something wordless formed. Not out of debt, not out of rescue. Just two people recognizing each other in the dark, like two secret markings on the same map. A place where dignity isn't up for negotiation. Morning fog veiled Boston, a thin layer of silver pressing against the glass walls of the Wright Diamond Group Tower like frost. On the 41st floor, cold light poured through the panoramic windows, reflecting off the composed face of Caleb Wright. Shirt sleeves rolled, ash gray tie, gaze steady enough to lower the temperature in the room without raising his voice. He sat before a screen, scrolling through the file his assistant had placed neatly on the table. Name, Scarlett Barnes. Charge, assault at a gala, permanently suspended from the Bar Association. Education, Harvard Law, top 5% of her class. Internal Service Industry Report Note, emotionally volatile. Not fit for corporate environments. Caleb's lips curved faintly, a smile that never reached his eyes. People love labeling what they can't understand. Evan, his assistant, sitting to the left, paused mid-note. You seriously plan to get involved with this woman? The Wright scandal just cooled down after 2 years. The press could destroy you all over again. Caleb looked up, his voice low and clipped. I never forgot. He turned his chair toward the glass wall, gazing down at the cars below. Tiny black dots crawling over a fog-draped carpet. On the screen, Scarlett's profile photo showed a woman exhausted yet upright. Those dark eyes, not the eyes of someone who broke the law for thrill, but of someone who'd stood in the dark long enough to learn not to fall. Evan lowered his tone. Even if she's right, the media doesn't need truth to make headlines. Caleb didn't answer. The only personal object on his desk, besides the computer, was a worn document folder, its edges frayed where fingers had once gripped too tightly. Beneath his rolled sleeve, a thin scar along his left shoulder pulsed faintly in the damp weather, a remnant of a night when a flash of glass and a camera lens had carved a jagged mark into both his skin and his reputation. She was sentenced by public opinion too, he said quietly, eyes still fixed on the suspended sky between glass and fog. If the world owes me an apology, maybe it owes her a chance. He flicked to the next page. Academic records, a recommendation from a procedural law professor, notes on pro bono legal cases during her university years, and then a string of tabloid links repeating the same clipped video. A side note from the risk analysis team read, "Subject shows strong defensive reflexes under coercion, but no record of initiating violence." Caleb's finger hovered over that line, as if someone had just struck a match in a room made entirely of glass. "Evan," he said, closing the file, "schedule a meeting with legal. I want a clean process for dealing with Herbal Twist and Mr. Sanders. Also, have comms pull every piece of content that mentions Scarlett Barnes. I want the originals. All of them." "Yes, Mr. Wright." Evan hesitated a beat. "And the media? We're not putting on a show." Caleb adjusted his cuff, flexing his wrist to shake off the chill. "We're doing this right." Beyond the glass, the Charles River appeared to be a strip of molten lead. Inside, the coffee machine exhaled a steady sigh. Caleb pressed his palm to the edge of the desk, the patient gesture of a man used to long distances. He thought of the woman from the night before, curled up on the car seat, clutching a cup of ginger tea with both hands as if it were her final argument for her own dignity. A woman who refused to trade self-respect for compliance. "You're bringing her into the system?" Evan asked. "Not bringing," Caleb replied. "Opening the door. Whether she walks through it or not, that's her choice." Evan nodded, pulling out his phone to send the emails. Caleb turned back to the screen, closing out the gossip sites and leaving only the dry data. Timelines, witness statements, labor codes, and service industry ethics clauses. Everything rendered back into the language where truth could breathe again. He shut the file. Morning light glanced off the glass and across his shoulder, where the faint scar stretched like a buried memory. Caleb inhaled slowly, exhaled evenly, and set the folder down with the firm finality of a man refusing to let an old verdict define him twice. This time he realized he wasn't just seeking justice, he was seeking faith. Noon was dim, as if Boston itself tried to hide its scars. In a cafe near the press district, Miles, a former journalist, placed a small USB drive in front of Caleb. 3 camera angles, no catfight. The footage they aired was deliberately cropped. They cut out the part where Courtney slipped on the stairs. Caleb nodded slightly, sliding an envelope back toward him. Miles gave a tired smile. "Watch it first. Decide later. Good luck, Mr. Wright." Afternoon. Rain streaked down the glass walls of Third Diamond. Scarlett stood a few feet from the screen, hands gripping the edge of her coat. Caleb inserted the USB and opened the video. His voice was kept low and even. "The original file. You don't have to watch, but I think the truth deserves to be seen, not just remembered." "I don't want to relive it," Scarlett whispered, shoulders curling as if bracing against a wave she'd drowned in before. "The truth doesn't need your memory," Caleb said quietly. "It needs your permission to exist." He didn't move closer, only stepped half a pace back, giving her space to choose. Scarlett inhaled, then nodded faintly. The video played. Camera 1, hallway of the law firm. Scarlett appeared, holding a ring box. The conference room door cracked open. Inside, Luca and Courtney standing too close. Scarlett pushed the door. Voices rose. No hands, no violence. Courtney suddenly slapped Scarlett, a sharp and clean blow. Scarlett didn't hit back. She just froze, eyes wide. Camera 2, stairwell. Courtney stepped backward, her heel catching the edge of a step. She slipped, falling 2 steps down. A short scream. Luca lunged to catch her. Too late. Then he turned, shouting at Scarlett. There was no shove. Scarlett never touched her. Camera 3, lobby. A crowd rushed in, phones out. Later, the footage cut to the image that would loop endlessly online. Courtney crying, clutching her cheek, while Scarlett stood motionless. That fragment became the proof of aggression. Scarlett closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them again, her lashes were wet, but her voice was steady. Stop there. Caleb switched off the screen. Only the rain remained, tapping the glass like fingertips. Scarlett sat on the edge of the chair, looking out at the gray skyline, and began to speak, measured, calm, as if every word had been arranged in her mind years ago. I was born in Quincy, outside Boston. My adoptive parents were gardeners, simple, kind people. They loved me, even though they had little to give. When I was 16, I went to donate blood at school and found out my blood type didn't match theirs. My mother cried all night. 2 weeks later, the DNA test confirmed it. I wasn't their biological child. The paper screamed, "The lost Barnes heiress found after 16 years." The Barnes family, owners of one of Boston's largest supermarket and art gallery empires, was where I belonged. I remember being thrilled. I thought I finally had a home, but no one really wanted me back. She gave a faint, distant smile. My birth mother, Cindy, looked at me like I was a mistake to be corrected. She was too used to Courtney, the daughter they'd raised by accident for 16 years. Courtney was gentle, obedient, and charming. And I was clumsy, honest, and didn't know how to pretend. My father, Philip, wasn't cruel, just weak. He feared losing the perfect family image the media adored, so they took me back home. Not out of love, but for show. Caleb was silent. Scarlett continued, voice level but raw beneath the calm. I studied law at Harvard. I thought if I excelled, they'd be proud. But when I fell in love with Luca James, the son of the family's business partner, everything collapsed. Later, Courtney met him. She fell for him too. And, as always, she won. One night, they were caught together. When I confronted them, neither showed remorse. They mocked me instead. Luca admitted he never loved me. He'd courted me for power. He thought I was the heir to the Barnes family. But when he realized I was the biological daughter who'd been rejected, and Courtney was the public favorite, he switched sides. Courtney hit me, called me the thorn ruining her life. Then she stepped back, her heel slipped. She fell down the stairs and said I pushed her. The tabloids ran wild. Heiress attacks foster sister in jealous rage. My mother told the press, "We cannot condone violence even from our own blood." Scarlett lowered her gaze, lips tightening. The firm fired me. The bar disqualified me. Friends changed their numbers. My family milked the scandal to protect their honorable image. No one asked if I'd been slapped first. No one asked if it hurt. She looked up again, finishing in a voice soft but unbreakable. I left them that night, snow falling, empty-handed, except for my dignity. Silence filled the room. Caleb kept his distance, his gaze steady, seeing in her eyes not weakness, but tempered steel. I believe you, he said at last, his tone quiet yet certain. Not because of the footage, though it matters, but because of your eyes. The eyes of someone betrayed, yet unwilling to sell her dignity for false peace. Scarlett let out a thin, tired laugh. Belief sounds sweet. Acting on it, that's the hard part. We act right, Caleb replied instantly, as if the plan had been waiting in his mind. Legal will contact your former firm regarding employee protection failures. We'll petition the bar examiners to review your disbarment, and comms will separate the slander from the facts. As for Courtney and the Barnes family, you won't face anyone you don't want to. Scarlett looked at him for a long beat. You say we like it second nature. This is still your story, Caleb said slowly. I'm just standing beside it, to make sure it's told in full, in the right order. Facts first, labels later. Outside, the rain was thinning. A pale beam of sunlight broke through the clouds, tracing a thin silver line across the river. Scarlett's hands relaxed. There were no fireworks, no music swell, only the quiet weight of a bridge beginning to take shape, with one unconditional sentence: I believe you. The first emotional climax passed without noise, but something had shifted. Faith, once something she begged from others, had changed form into a right she could finally claim, and from that right, she could start reclaiming her name. Morning in the 31st floor apartment smelled of coffee. Caleb placed a neatly folded document in front of Scarlett, just a few short lines. Temporary legal assistant, he said. 3 months, fair pay, work by my side. Scarlett skimmed it, then looked up. Fine. One condition: no one can know I'm staying here. Caleb nodded. Agreed. From that day, they worked at the same table. No need for much talk. Emails came in, documents went out, schedules dotted across the screen. Caleb read fast. Scarlett flagged items. They passed files back and forth like a quiet game of catch. Smooth, steady, nothing dropped. By night, the golden light dimmed, and the clicks of keys and pens were enough to give the room a heartbeat. One evening, Scarlett passed through the living room and saw Caleb changing into a different jacket. His light shirt sleeves were rolled to his biceps, revealing a long, jagged scar across his left shoulder. Dark, rough, like a pen stroke someone had gone over too many times. She froze mid-step. Accident? Caleb smiled faintly, a smile that never reached his eyes. No, the press. Scarlett didn't ask more. He rarely joked. Caleb leaned against the edge of the table, his voice slow, as if counting each stair he had once climbed. 3 years ago, I trusted the wrong person. She was my PR director. I loved her, believed she would help build and protect the company's reputation, but she sold confidential files to a rival. When I was about to expose the evidence, she cried on live TV saying I used the woman I loved to stage a fake manipulation scandal. That night, our stock dropped 30%. I walked out of Wright Tower, and someone threw a glass bottle. The shards left this. He brushed his fingers lightly over the scar, not to show it off, but as if checking that the memory was still real. My mother had a stroke while watching the broadcast, Caleb continued quietly. I was devastated, betrayed, and twisted by the media. But I never sued anyone, because forcing them to tell the truth would mean hearing their lies again, louder, dirtier. Scarlett was silent for a while. The air conditioner hummed softly. She looked at the scar and realized it wasn't just the mark of glass. It was the shape of a night when rage was thrown at a branded face and of a son watching his mother collapse over a fabricated story. Do you still trust people? She asked. No, Caleb said, then added, not until I met you. Scarlett smiled faintly, short, unflinching. And you think I'm different? Different, he said. You don't try to prove you're clean. You simply live that way. Liars use words to fix labels. Honest people use habits to fix the small world around them. She looked down at her hands, the same hands that once trembled in the rain, now steady. A flash of memory crossed her mind, the two of them working side by side, sharing silence like air. No debts, no obligations, just walking together. That scar, Scarlett said softly. You keep it to remind yourself of what? Caleb thought for a second. That pain isn't a reason for revenge. It's a standard. If that night I'd fought back against the noise, I would have lost to prejudice. So I changed the rules, from chasing what's right in the headlines to what's right in principle. Scarlett nodded. So this contract between us, is it one of the principles? Yours, Caleb corrected gently. I just co-signed it, to make it law in this house. They stood still for a moment. The light made the scar on his shoulder glow warmer, and the invisible one in her chest, the memory of a gala night, a slap, a fall twisted into gossip, suddenly stung less. It was as if two scars had recognized each other. No need to touch, just to understand the same material. Caleb put his jacket back on. I've got a meeting downstairs, 15 minutes. Don't open the door unless it's me. The internal access code is on your phone. Okay, Scarlett said. The door closed. The apartment returned to the soft tapping of someone typing in the next room and the faint scent of cooled coffee. Scarlett sat down, opened her unfinished draft email, and added one short line at the end. Not to anyone, just to herself. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the truth to be seen. She hit save. In the dim reflection of the screen, Scarlett saw her own face. Imperfect, unguarded, but upright. And for the first time in a long while, a temporary job didn't feel like a life raft. It felt like a shield they had accidentally forged together. Wind from the harbor swept through the rows of flags along the pier. The Boston Harbor Hotel shimmered across its glass facade, reflecting the black water scattered with the slow lights of passing yachts. Inside the Grand Hall, the faint clinking of glasses sounded like crystal rain. Courtney Barnes wore a pearl-colored silk gown and a practiced smile that never cracked. Beside her, Luca James adjusted his navy blue tie, phone in hand like a weapon. They walked around the charity gala venue. The Arts and Youth Gala banner gleamed above the stage, violins were tuning, and rows of white linen tables sparkled under soft chandeliers. You confirmed with Caleb? Courtney asked softly. I did. Wright's always punctual, Luca replied, scanning the VIP section. And her? Courtney's lips curved. A friend needed a replacement server. I handled it. In the service wing, Scarlett tied her hair back and clipped on a borrowed name tag. You owe me big time, her friend said between shallow breaths. I caught a fever, and no one else took the shift. Just pour drinks, serve hors d'oeuvres, and leave. That's it, Scarlett nodded. Got it. I'll do it and go. She pushed through the swinging doors into a sea of tuxedos and gowns. From a distance, Caleb had just arrived at the top of the escalator. Black suit, white shirt, no tie. He was greeting a major sponsor, offering a professional, polite smile. Scarlett's eyes caught his for a fleeting second, then moved on. She lowered her tray of glasses and focused on the bottle labels, the guest placements, the rhythm of service. Tonight is about community, the MC announced from the stage, and about the truth of art. The last phrase hung with deliberate weight, meant for someone specific to catch. Courtney and Luca moved through the crowd like needles threading together handshakes and air kisses under the camera flashes. Then Courtney stopped precisely at the table where Scarlett was refilling champagne. Oh, Courtney exclaimed, voice as smooth as satin. Scarlett, what a surprise. Scarlett froze for half a second, then offered the polite, professional smile of a staff. Good evening, ma'am. Courtney tilted her glass. More champagne, please. The tilt was too steep, just enough for a trick. Scarlett steadied her wrist, pouring carefully. But Courtney flicked hers at the last moment. Champagne splashed, spilling down Scarlett's black uniform in a bright, cold stain. Oh dear, Courtney said sweetly, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Some people never learn how to bow. The air thickened. A few phones were lifted discreetly. Luca folded his arms, a thin smirk on his lips. Scarlett stood still. She set the bottle back on the tray, took a napkin, and calmly dabbed the stain. No protest, no retreat. Then she lifted her chin, eyes level, so calm it unsettled those waiting for drama. The crowd parted as if the floor itself made way. Caleb stepped into that space. He didn't look at Courtney first. He looked at Scarlett, his gaze asking if she was all right, a silent question that didn't need sound. Scarlett shook her head faintly. Before she could speak, Courtney turned, her voice bright. Mr. Wright, you made it. Caleb reached out and took Scarlett's hand. The motion was clean, unforced, but sharp enough for every camera lens in the room to catch the interlocked fingers. He turned toward the stage, not to perform, but to set the tone for the room. His voice was low, steady, yet carried effortlessly as the background music automatically dimmed to let the system's lead mic pick up. She doesn't bow to anyone, because she's innocent. The entire hall fell silent. The strings section missed a note, then stopped. Photographers froze, afraid even the click of a shutter might sound disrespectful. Luca gave a short, cynical laugh. Caleb, you're defending a waitress? What's this? Sentiment. Careful, or the Wright scandal might come back. Caleb turned halfway, eyes cold as forged steel. Dignity isn't theater. And for tonight's procedure, when a staff member gets spilled on, accidentally or not, they must be given a change of uniform. If the organizers ignore that, it's a safety violation. I'm speaking as a guest and as a venue partner. A flustered hotel manager rushed over, bowing repeatedly, apologizing to Scarlett, and offering to escort her backstage. Scarlett shook her head, still standing tall, refusing to hide behind anyone. Caleb didn't release her hand. Courtney's lips stiffened before stretching into her most camera-perfect smile. We, of course, respect procedure, but we also respect the truth. Scarlett wants the truth, Caleb interrupted, voice cutting through, is that a woman doing her job was just humiliated in public. And another truth, in this city, no one is forced to bow for defending themselves. From the back of the room, a single clap broke the silence. Too awkward to start applause, but enough to crack the tension. Then another joined, and another. Not loud, but steady. Courtney's chin twitched. Luca leaned close, muttering something. They withdrew into the crowd, their smiles refitted like wax masks. Caleb leaned toward Scarlett, voice low. Do you want to stay or go change? Stay, Scarlett said, gaze steady. I'm done running. Okay, Caleb replied. He let go of her hand, returning her agency, but stayed half a step behind, his presence forming a quiet shadow that made her no longer a lone target under every lens. That night, a 19-second clip spread online. Courtney's wrist twist, the spill, her line. Some people never learn how to bow. Caleb taking Scarlett's hand, his voice. She doesn't bow to anyone, because she's innocent. No filters, no captions, just the correct sequence, uncut. The comments didn't explode in outrage. They questioned. Did the old story get the order wrong? Why should she have bowed? Who decides who's clean and who's not? In her 31st floor apartment, Scarlett sat by the window, watching the harbor shimmer in green and gold. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I saw tonight, I'm sorry for 2 years ago. No name, none needed. In the window's reflection, her outline overlapped with the shadow of a man pouring water into a teapot. Neither spoke, but for the first time the world outside no longer seemed so certain of the story it once believed. And sometimes for those who've carried labels too long, doubt itself is the first step toward justice. The message arrived at 6:10 a.m. Filed. Caleb attached a PDF. Scarlett Barnes vs. Courtney Barnes and Luca James. Defamation, false light, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Below it was a separate letter addressed to the Board of Bar Examiners, requesting a review of Scarlett's disqualification, with the original video, journalist Miles's affidavit, and a detailed timeline attached. Scarlett stared at the words plaintiff, Scarlett Barnes. No right anywhere. No fund, no sponsor title. Just her name. She texted, I don't want to fight under your name. Caleb replied almost instantly, then fight under yours. I'll stand behind you. The courtroom at the Suffolk Superior Court was cold that morning. Dark red brick, oak panels, a flag hanging perfectly straight. Courtney entered with a line of gray-suited attorneys. Luca adjusted a navy tie. On the plaintiff's side, there was no uniformed lawyer. Scarlett stood alone. White shirt, black skirt, spine straight, file clasped tightly. Pro se. The clerk called the case. Judge Gibson looked over his glasses. Ms. Barnes, are you sure you wish to represent yourself? The court recommends counsel. Scarlett nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I have outside advisors, but I appear on my own today. The defense moved to dismiss opinion, personal conflict, freedom of speech. The plaintiff, Scarlett, placed a USB drive on the podium. Your Honor, permission to play the original video from 3 camera angles. The screen lit up. Hallway, staircase, lobby. Courtney's slap across Scarlett's face, the heel slip that made Courtney fall, without contact. Then metadata logs from the building server, along with Miles's sworn affidavit, confirmed that the news footage had been edited. Scarlett called witnesses, the building's security guard, the law firm's receptionist, a janitor, people overlooked in the noise of headlines. Their testimonies matched. The shouting, the slap, the slip. Courtney's ER report listed a scraped knee and mild wrist swelling, inconsistent with being pushed forcefully. Then came Luca's turn. Scarlett began the cross-examination herself. You said Ms. Courtney was pushed. Where were you when that occurred? Right next to her. Angle 2 shows you standing in front, phone in hand, turning around after the sound of the slip. How do you explain that? Luca hesitated. I don't remember. But 12 minutes later, you posted, "Jealous maniac attacks her sister." You claimed something you didn't see. Defense counsel objected. Overruled, said the judge. Answer. At the time, I believed it, Luca muttered, face ashen. Scarlett turned to Courtney. You said I pushed you. Can you point to any frame where there's physical contact before you fell? Not every camera. So that's no. But I felt... Feelings aren't evidence, Scarlett cut in, gentle but firm. She held up a printed tabloid photo, her standing still in the lobby beside the headline, "Attacked her foster sister." Scarlett looked straight at the jury. This, she said, is what has defined me for 2 years. Defense rose. Objection, emotional appeal. The judge turned to her. Ms. Barnes, do you intend to proceed to closing? The room seemed to draw a breath backward. Scarlett stepped forward, empty-handed. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, she began. I'm not a hero. I'm not a villain. I'm a citizen standing here to reclaim the only thing I have left, my name. We've seen the raw footage. We've heard the witnesses. We've read the medical report. We've seen the order of events and how different it is from the story that was told. They called me violent because I stood still. They said I pushed someone because a heel slipped. They called me vicious because I didn't bow. I used to think I needed reputation to survive, but reputation is something others can give and take away. Honor is what you keep even when you're left with nothing else. I kept mine even when I walked out into the snow that night with nothing but my name. I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for order, facts before labels. I'm asking you to tell the world that here, truth is decided by evidence, not by volume. The courtroom went silent. No coughs, no rustling paper, only the clerk's pen scratching across the record. Judge Gibson instructed the jury to narrow their findings. Whether the defendant's posts and statements were false, publicly disseminated, damaging, and made with reckless disregard for truth. The jury retired to deliberate. 34 minutes. When they returned, the foreperson stood, voice clear. We find the defendants liable for defamation. Damages awarded for reputational and emotional harm. Public retraction required. Courtney went pale. Lucas stared down at his untied shoe. The judge struck the gavel, then looked toward Scarlett. One more matter. The Board of Bar Examiners has submitted a provisional decision during deliberation. They've reopened your case, acknowledged the new evidence, and reinstated your eligibility for the upcoming exam. Scarlett closed her eyes for a single heartbeat, as if setting down a heavy book. When she opened them, her gaze was calm. At the back row, Caleb didn't rise or clap. He only nodded once, a small nod that said, "See you at the door." Outside, the wind from the bay swept across the courthouse steps. Reporters stood at a distance. No shouting, no crowding. One leaned forward and asked quietly, "Do you have any comment, Miss Barnes?" Scarlett smiled, her words crisp as a verdict. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the truth to be seen. Today it was. She descended the steps, unaided, uncovered. Beyond, the waves shimmered in the morning light. The arc of saving herself closed, not with fireworks, but with a jury's signature on a truth put back where it belonged. And sometimes justice is just that simple, giving a person's name back to its rightful owner. Boston lay beneath a thin white veil, soft as powdered sugar. The stone steps of the Superior Court were slick with frost, each footstep cracking lightly against the wind. The heavy wooden doors opened, and Scarlett stepped out first, clutching the edge of her coat as her breath scattered in pale clouds. At the bottom of the steps, Caleb waited. His long coat hung open, his arms slightly outstretched, as if all that remained between them was her choice to step forward, and everything else would fall into place. No nameplates, no cameras pressing in, just snow and a silence deep enough to hear their hearts. "You won," he said, not loudly but clearly. Scarlett laughed, a soft, startled sound that broke into warmth against the frozen air. She ran down 2 steps, slipped slightly on the third, and he was already there, catching her cleanly in his arms. The scent of wool and faint ginger rose from his collar, blending with the smell of new snow. She pressed her face into his shoulder, letting the cold outside melt there. "It's not me who won," she murmured. "It's the truth." Caleb tightened his hold briefly, then kissed her forehead, a light, steady touch that carried the weight of a seal. In that instant, the snow thickened, falling evenly, as if someone were adjusting the background of this moment to pure white. "Let's go home," he said. "Home?" Scarlett looked up, eyes still damp but smiling. "You mean the apartment on the 31st floor, or somewhere else?" "Home," Caleb replied, "is anywhere you can breathe without having to explain yourself. Whether that's on the 31st floor or a doorstep somewhere." Scarlett laughed again. She stepped back half a pace to see him fully, the left shoulder beneath his coat, hiding the scar, the clear blue eyes no longer dodging the past, and that quiet peace of a man who had chosen to change the rules instead of seek revenge. Gently, she reached up to fix a crooked button near his collar. "Tonight," she said, "don't wear the poo sweater outside." Caleb tilted his head, amused. "If it still makes you smile, I'll keep it. At home." They stood there for a long moment, as if giving the city time to remember. A man with his coat open, a woman standing upright, and between them a single kiss on the forehead, small but enough to change the tone of an entire winter. Across the street, a car slid past, leaving soft tire tracks on the snow. Wind from the harbor brushed through Scarlett's hair. She looked toward the square, where pigeons huddled beneath the eaves, then turned back, resting her forehead lightly against his chin. It wasn't passionate or dramatic, just the quiet safety of two people who had already walked through the hardest part of the story. "Let's go," she said. Caleb wrapped his coat halfway around her, shielding her from the wind. They descended the steps together. Behind them, the heavy doors closed. Ahead, the snow-covered street stretched open, the streetlights glowing amber. The city's noise faded to nothing, leaving only the whisper of falling snow and 2 sets of footprints side by side, parallel, steady, never crossing over each other. A month after the trial, the Boston Globe ran a front-page headline, "Scarlett Barnes from outcast to Boston's symbol of justice." Every major news channel replayed the snowy courthouse footage, her calm smile as she stepped outside, neither proud nor vengeful. The anchor said, "She didn't just win her case, she made people believe in justice again." From that victory, Caleb and Scarlett founded the Barnes Justice Initiative, a foundation supporting women defamed, assaulted, or stripped of their careers by media falsehoods. Its headquarters, a refurbished seaport warehouse, was an open, sunlit space, one side a legal office, the other a training studio and free counseling center. On the glass doors, engraved words read, "For those who lost their voice and are ready to find it again." Scarlett was no longer the girl banned from the bar. She had officially been reinstated as a public attorney under the Boston Community Justice Office. Each morning, she arrived earlier than her colleagues, bringing coffee, answering pro bono inquiries between brewing cycles. Sometimes the news mentioned her again, but now the headlines weren't scandal. They were direction. One late winter morning, the office door opened softly. Caleb Wright stepped in. Same dark sweater, same old glasses. He placed a bag of hot coffee on her desk. The scent of cinnamon and ginger drifted through the air. Familiar. Safe. "Morning, beauty," he said, voice low, teasing. Scarlett looked up, smiling. "And you're still Mr. Pooh." He shrugged, eyes glinting. "If it still makes you smile, I'll keep the name forever." She laughed out loud, the sound Caleb once called, the kind that warms a room even when it's hailing outside. He watched her for a few seconds, then nodded toward the new sign on the wall. "Barnes Justice Initiative, officially registered." "You did it," he said. "No help from me. No one's shadow." Scarlett glanced at the sign, her smile softening. "No one walks alone. I just chose the right person to walk with. Caleb was silent for a moment, then smiled. That rare, unguarded smile that didn't need boardrooms or plans. He poured himself a cup of coffee from the machine behind her and asked, "Why's the brew stronger today?" "Because today," she said, "we don't have to water anything down." Outside, Boston gleamed in sunlight. The snow from the night before had melted, leaving shimmering traces of water across the sidewalks. Scarlett turned back to her files. Caleb leaned against the window frame, watching her work with a quiet faith, the kind he'd once lost in his own profession. A single beam of light crossed the glass, falling on the Barnes Justice logo. On the white wall, their shadows overlapped, one straight, one slightly tilted, imperfect but clear, both facing toward the light. Boston's night sky glowed as if someone had hung extra stars. On the rooftop of Third Diamond, a soft breeze from the Charles River stirred the string lights, their golden warmth stretching across the space between the city and the sky. A small camera sat quietly in the corner. Boris had said it was for a time-lapse of the stars, then smoothly disappeared with the catering team. Scarlett stepped out in a simple off-shoulder dress, her hair tied low. By the glass railing, Caleb waited. Dark coat, steady stance, holding out a cup printed with a Pooh Bear. "Hot toddy, no whiskey," he said with a smile. "So you don't shake." "I'm not shaking," Scarlett replied, though her hands were still a little cold when they brushed the cup. Caleb looked out at the city, then back at her, voice low and sure, the same tone he used when closing a deal. "Right here was where we first talked about truth. Tonight, I'd like to discuss the future. Scarlett Barnes, will you build a home with me? One whose only rule is respect and whose only binding clause is freedom?" Scarlett laughed softly, eyes glistening. "Did you just propose to me in legal language?" "Because it's how I can promise the most and lie the least." Caleb took out a small box. "Marry me?" The ring was platinum, slender, with a modest stone, beautiful in a way that needed no proof. Scarlett drew a breath. "Yes, I will." Caleb smiled. He dropped to one knee and slipped the ring onto her finger. They kissed, sweet, unhurried, before falling into each other's arms. Applause burst from behind the bar. Boris and the kitchen crew set off confetti cannons. The string lights brightened half a notch. In the distance, a tour boat gave two short honks, as if the city itself had witnessed the moment. One season later, the small stone church in Beacon Hill bloomed with white flowers and candlelight. As she walked down the aisle, Scarlett held her foster mother's hand. The woman's hair now streaked with silver after a long winter. Her foster father followed close behind, both of them dressed with the simple elegance of gardeners, pride shining plainly in their eyes. At the end of the aisle, Caleb waited. The music rose. Scarlett glanced along the rows. Caleb's mother beaming, friends and colleagues from the public law office, women from the Barnes Justice Initiative sitting tall with confidence, Evan, Miles, the Third Diamond team. She met Caleb's gaze and saw something rare there. Peace, the kind that comes after finally choosing the right side to stand on. Vows exchanged. Bells rang. Outside, the reception unfolded under oak trees. Soft laughter, warm lights, the clinking of glasses. Her foster mother hugged her tightly. "Since you left, the gardens had an empty row. Today it's planted again." Scarlett smiled through tears. "I'll bring you both to see the new one. There's a rooftop in Seaport, full of sun." As dusk painted the rooftops gold, a couple stood quietly at the edge of the courtyard. Cindy and Philip Barnes. They hadn't announced their arrival. They came without cameras, without an entourage. The air stilled. The murmurs faded into a respectful hush. Cindy stepped forward, lacking the glossy confidence of her magazine photos. 2 steps away from Scarlett, she drew a breath. "Scarlett, The word mother caught briefly in her throat. "Today, in front of everyone, I want to apologize. You were right. I was wrong to replace affection with image." Philip nodded at Caleb, then turned to Scarlett. "And I'm sorry for choosing silence to protect a lie." It was cowardly. He held out an envelope. Not money, but a yellowed, folded letter. "To Scarlett, from the night of the snow, I never sent it, No one clapped. No one condemned. The silence this time carried no judgment, only recognition that some truths, though late, had finally arrived in their rightful place. Scarlett looked toward her foster mother, then to Caleb. He neither nodded nor shook his head, only placed a hand at her back, returning the choice to her. Scarlett turned to Cindy and Philip. Thank you for coming and for saying it. Forgiveness is the work of time. Boundaries are the work of today. Please have some cake, and excuse me, I need to return to my guests. Cindy nodded, eyes glistening. Philip squeezed her hand. Together they moved toward the trees, blending quietly into the crowd like old acquaintances crossing paths again. Boris appeared right on cue, popped a bottle of sparkling wine, and poured 2 glasses. Time for the kiss, Mr. Wright. Caleb grinned. Would you agree to add one more clause to our contract? Scarlett raised an eyebrow. What clause? Kiss, when necessary and when not. Scarlett laughed, resting her hand on his shoulder, right where the scar had long healed. Approved. They kissed, surrounded by the clear chime of glasses, the sway of oak branches, and faces that knew when to smile and when to stay quiet. At the edge of the courtyard, her foster parents clasped hands. Our daughter, her foster mother whispered, has come back into the light. Above them, the Boston sky deepened to violet. On a nearby rooftop, a flock of birds descended like soft punctuation marks. And from afar, the scene looked simple. 2 people standing side by side, never stepping on each other's shadow, signing the contract of their shared life with one brief, binding clause: love and respect.